Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships for our Saturday upgraded commander build video, being on the St. Vincent, as we featured two battles of the ship this week, yesterday, and then I think the other one was on Monday, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was Tuesday, can't remember now. Monday, that was Monday. So, with that being said, we're going to dive in, look at the ship more closely, and I'll give you my thoughts on the ship and maybe some different possible commander skill options you can go with. So let's talk about the ship. What type of ship, battleship, is St. Vincent? Well, she's much more of a battle cruiser, especially in terms of her armor. She's a lot 25mm, but she does have 32mm side plating, and then 40mm on the deck along the majority of the superstructure, as you do have a really long superstructure with how the ship is designed. You're in World of Warships in a very long citadel, which actually we'll get to that here in a moment. But she's more battleship, battle cruiser because she's a softer armor scheme. Also because your survivability is 79,400 for a tier 10 battleship. Normally you see over 90,000 and even up into 100,000. So yes, she, in terms of battleships, you have brawling battleships, sniper battleships, and mid-range battleships. She plays best as a mid-range battleship, and that's often playing around her concealment, so I'm just going to say 10 to 15 kilometers, but more around that 12.8 kilometer range is best. So if you need to go dark, you can go dark, so on and so forth. And then if the conditions allow for you to push in, it's favorable for you to push in and use your nuclear torpedoes, which we'll talk about in a moment. You can. You close the distance quite quickly with your engine boost, but if you need to disengage, you can also kite, and you can do a little bit of a long range HE spam, but you get the battle cruiser dispersion, but her sigma is 1.6, so it's not the most accurate battleship at long range. So really that, let's say 10 to 15 kilometer, and I play it more at 13 kilometer per se to 15 kilometers, where I find comfort levels with St. Vincent. Now, in terms of the armor scheme, as we were talking about, you have 25mm bow and stern, including the deck plate as well. And then when you look at the side armor, side plating, 32mm and 32mm, both belts, so you can angle and you can bounce a lot of large caliber shells. And then the 40mm here, so it helps a little bit with that fire resilience. Of course, the superstructure, 19mm, so that's going to get farmed, especially with how large it is. You know, I take this away. You see it's quite sizable along through here. The other thing that's to note is because she's a battle cruiser and she has this 25mm, a lot of battleships, high-tier battleships, tier 10 super ships, can overmatch you. Like Ohio's, other St. Vincent's, Yamato's, Incomparables, or Incomparable, however you pronounce that ship. I don't know if I already said Satsuma, Musashi, Georgia, Kremlin. So a lot of battleships are going to punch through your bow and stern and pin you for full damage. Now, when we take away some of that armor, you can see there's a little bit of somewhat of a, I don't know if you can really truly call this a turtleback armor scheme. That's the citadel is protected. The citadel is just above waterline is where the top of it is, right? So if I take this away, you can see just above the waterline, you can see a little bit of that citadel. So just slightly above waterline citadel. Here you can see it's got 32mm. It's the torpedo bulkhead, and then into the 305mm and 51mm here. So it is possible, if shell aimed well, you can actually, through the flat stern of the ship, pin right through and hit to the citadel. It is possible. Not easy, but it is possible. And it's also possible to even eat a citadel from the front and pinning through that 25mm bow. So just have to be mindful that this isn't a ship that does well in long engagements, fights. There's oftentimes you're going to have to go dark and use your specialized repair team, and we'll talk more about that. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the modules on the ship. So these are 457mm guns. With the build we have a 26.4 second reload time. Our 100 turn time of our turrets is 28.7 seconds. Maximum HE shell damage, 7,100. Maximum AP shell damage, 14,900. So you don't sleep on the AP. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Then going over into the hull. 79,400 hit points. So you do have okay AA throughout the ship. You have some secondary capacity. Don't play the ship for secondaries by any means. You have two torpedo tubes, one on port and starboard on the front of the ship, and you have 38 AA mounts. Torpedoes, we'll talk more about these nuclear tipped torpedoes. They're 622 millimeter torpedoes. They reload in 45 seconds. They have a range of 10 kilometers. Maximum damage almost 30,000 and a decent, pretty good speed of 69 knots. Now, in terms of your gunfire control system, if you don't go for range in slot 6, which I wouldn't encourage you to do, your range as is 20.5 kilometers, and that's honestly just fine for St. Vincent. Like I said, she's not a long-range battleship. She can if she gets forced into that situation and roll. That's not ideal where she plays. So you have that. You don't get a spotter plane for St. Vincent either. Your propulsion is 180,000 horsepower, maximum speed 32.5 knots. Now with this ship, you do have built-in propulsion, so that's very helpful with that lack of survivability and hit points. Now we can also increase that speed with the Sierra Mike flag to 34.1 knots, and further we can increase that much more with the engine boost. So this is a plus 8%. So if I do the math here real quick, you're going to add 2.7 knots basically to 4.1, so 36.8 knots is what you can expect to see out of the St. Vincent. Now of course, if you took something like Brisk, you'd make this even go faster, and we can talk about that in the commander build. Now in terms of the upgrades, for the first slot, I've gone for main armaments modification 1. Risk of main battery becoming incapacitated in addition to the torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated is negative 20%. Your main battery torpedo tube survivability is plus 50%. Your main battery repair time and torpedo tube repair time is reduced by negative 20%. That is important to note where your torpedoes are, because you might be kind of wondering that. And basically they're down here beneath the waterline. We can't even actually see them and how they fire out. Now, it's actually possible, because it's not a torpedo tube that's sitting up on your deck. They still get incapacitated. I played a couple battles earlier, as I'm recording this video actually on Tuesday, where I had my torpedo tubes knocked out several times. Not fully incapacitated, but just, well, I guess incapacitated, but not perma-knocked out. So that does help, and that's kind of your trump card, too, when you push in and you want to launch these nuclear-tipped torpedo heads into the enemy ship fighting you. Now in terms of auxiliary armaments, not really needed here by any means. It's not what the ship's about in terms of AA secondaries. Magazine modification 1 you wouldn't need. It reduces the risk of your ship's magazine detonating by negative 70%. Just take Charlie combat signal when you're playing ranked, random battles, clan battles, and reduce or completely eliminates risk of your ship's magazine detonating. Damage control party modification 1. This just extends the action time of your damage control party consumable. Right now we have it built up to 16.5. And another thing I actually didn't point out on the armor is the turret armor. So it's actually pretty thick on the front, 457 millimeter. The side's a bit weaker, 356. Back, 712 millimeter on the back. So the backs of the turrets are really strong. So that's actually quite nice, and I think Wargaming is kind of thinking about, in particular, this turret as often has to traverse. And 203 on the top is the weakest, as often you'll see in the game. So with some of those weaknesses in mind, that's why I do, in particular, like running the main armaments modification 1. Now in slot 2, of the credits, standard upgrades, I take the damage control system modification 1. This reduces the risk of catching fire, negative 5%, risk of flooding, negative 3%. So it builds into a little bit more of your wet tankiness you do have, increasing your survivability. Injury and protection, I have had my steering gears knocked out here and there, but typically I'm not too concerned about it because, I'll use my damage control party, because I'm wanting more to mitigate the chances of flooding and chances of fire. Now, if I have coal, which I do have coal, and I wouldn't mind, I would be willing to purchase the special upgrade of the engine boost modification 1. Without the coupon, it's 17,000 coal. With coupon, 12,750. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase your action time of your engine boost by plus 30%. I've had a couple times when I've been playing St. Vincent, I just wished it lasted a little longer. And so if I'm going to, I mean, eventually this is something I would pick up to put on the St. Vincent. So that would be my number one recommendation. If you have the call, you know, I try to always take advantage of the coupons to pick up Engine Boost Modification 1. It's going to increase your action time of your engine boost to 156 seconds. Right now it's just 120 seconds. So you're just adding just over a half minute on. Otherwise, the damage control system modification 1 is just fine to run if you don't want to spend the coal at that point in time. Now, the third slot, excuse me, there's two options here, okay? I have gone for the aiming systems modification 1. I'll put it on the screen, but what it does is it reduces, the main thing is it reduces your maximum main battery shell dispersion by -7%. If you saw yesterday's video, there was a cheeky Zorky who was open gunboating us, and we managed to slap him incredibly hard. Didn't kill him, unfortunately, as that would have made my life a lot better, but we slapped him incredibly hard. And what this upgrade does is reduces your maximum vertical and horizontal dispersion. So we're getting tighter shell grouping. Granted, we have Battlecruiser dispersion, but our Sigma is 1.6. So I like to be able to land salvos accurately, especially this British high explosive. It wrecks destroyers, especially something like the Zorky with its armor scheme. You're bound to get a lot of full pins, not just merely over pins with that high explosive. So you also get the buff bonus of torpedo tube traverse speed plus 20% and a slight buff to your secondaries. But it's mainly that maximum main battery shell dispersion reduction you're going for. Now the other option is the main battery modification 2. This is going to improve your main battery traverse speed by plus 15%. Now normally I am a stickler. I like my main battery traverse speed to at least be 30 seconds if not better. Here on St. Vincent, with Grease the Gears on our Commander Nelson, we have a 180 return time of 28.7 seconds. So that beats that 30 seconds, at least for me. So I'm okay just running only turret traverse or Grease the Gears on my Commander. Now, if you were to take the main battery modification 2, your turret traverse time, 180 return time is going to be 24.99 seconds. Oh, 25 seconds is what your turret traverse time will be. So if you really wanting that additional time, go for it. Now it's not that big of a deal because you're mostly fighting bow in, angled in. Sometimes you'll be kiting away, right? But it's kind of that third turret helping, because it's basically got a 270 degree turn time, so it's going to take quite a bit of time to get around. So if you're really, that annoys you, if you're constantly shifting sides, then maybe that's the skill for you to upgrade to run here in the third slot. But I'm really comfortable with aiming systems modification 1. I'm not going to touch on other skills, they just don't make sense on St. Vincent at all. As I said, you have built-in propulsion with the St. Vincent, so that's quite fun, especially paired with the engine boost. So you can see propulsion is not even an option here. What I've done is I've gone for damage control system modification 2. This is reducing the fire extinguishing time by -15% and flooding recovery time by -15%. I have, in my games playing St. Vincent so far, I routinely get minimal 2 million potential damage. I've gotten up to 3 million potential damage, and I had a game a little bit earlier where I actually ended the game with 3.6 billion potential damage. So it is a ship that you'll take a lot of punishment. In particular, having the specialized repair teams regularly brings you back from the brink of death, depending on what type of damage you've taken. You know, if it's just fires, right, floods, you can pretty much heal all that back. If it's citadel damage, and there's only a certain percentage you can heal back, and I don't know what it is here on St. Vincent. But the damage control system modification 2 just helps you last in the game longer, as you would probably see in yesterday's game. Otherwise, you have steering gears modification 1. Your maneuverability, 970 meters for turning circle radius, rudder shift time 17 seconds. So not too hot, but the engine boost kind of helps get you going, so you're not a slow turner. So I would recommend damage control system modification 2 first and foremost. Now, with St. Vincent, because she's deadly with these 457mm guns, with the 5th slot, really the concealment system modification 1 is really the clear winner here. When you build in concealment on your commander and on the upgrades, your concealment max is 12.8. Without, I think you're over 14, maybe close to almost 15 kilometers. So building into that strength that you have with these delightful 457mm guns, with the HE, the 66, you can build up % chance of starting fires, where it's just 63% now. Yeah. And that massive AP shell damage of 14,900. So to be able to sneak up more closer to your targets and slap the living bejesus out of them is actually rather nice. On the 6th slot, really, I'm going to recommend main battery modification 3 flat out. I'm not even going to consider any of these other 3 options, because this is helping. You're not a long-range battleship, okay? You're a mid-range battleship. Most battleships in the game are mid-range battleships. St. Vincent can do okay in all 3 roles to an extent, but she thrives in the mid-range. To be able to go dark, re-engage, go dark, re-engage. So being able to increase your damage per minute, just what you're doing with this, right? And having fast reload time, it really helps. But you're going to take a slight nerf on your main battery traverse speed of negative 13%. Remember, with this, our reload time is 26.4 seconds. Otherwise, it would be several seconds higher. I don't know off the top of my head, closer to 30, maybe to 29. The other thing you might see battleship players running on St. Vincent, as an example, would be the gunfire control system modification 2. This extends your main battery firing range by plus 16%. But if you're playing St. Vincent at 23 kilometers, I would ask you, why are you playing St. Vincent at 23 kilometers? If you're going to do that, just take like Satsuma, take Yamato, take a sniper battleship, if that's what you're really wanting to play. So I don't think St. Vincent's the ship for that. So really the main battery modification 3. Now in terms of the armament, as we just recently referenced, the 63% chances of causing a fire on a target, you can increase this up to 66%. You can increase it up to 65%, so 64 there. I don't have any Indian X-ray combat signals right now. They cost like 2.8 million credits, and I'm going to get some free from a container here probably pretty shortly. So that'd be 65% with both of those mounted. Now we also take Demolition Expert on a commander. It's going to bump us up to 66%. So you can have a little bit of a fire build if you want to build into that much more here on St. Vincent. We'll talk about that with the commander build. But these 457mm high explosive shells pin 76mm of armor. They devastate secondary guns and anti-air guns on enemy ships. If you watch yesterday's video, I think in total we took out like over 70 AA guns. On the Satsuma we farmed, we took out 48. I think it was on him, and we took out like I think over somewhere in the teens in terms of his secondary guns. So you rip AA off of battleships. So if you're working tag teaming with a carrier player, you're in a division with him, you can really strip down a battleship and make him quite vulnerable for your carrier player on your team. Now your armor piercing shells, you don't want to sleep on these shells. Kind of the same story with Conqueror. These do maximum damage of 14,900. Pretty devastating, and they're short fuse AP, so light cruisers, you're not as likely to overpin them as you would with something like a Montana. You're likely to just Citadel, arm the AP shell in their Citadel, and just dev strike them. You can routinely do that with St. Vincent. So do try to utilize armor piercing when you can. Torpedoes, these are 45-second reload time, 10-kilometer range, 29,367 max damage. They have a speed of 69 knots, and their detectability range is 1.7 kilometers, which is okay. It's not the best. It's not like a deep water torpedo detectability range. But these are torpedoes you typically use as a trump card. Like I had a St. Vincent do this against me. I was in Salem in gold ranked, and he came around the corner, and I was like, shoot, didn't know he was going to be doing that. And he launched one of those torpedoes into me and chunked me largely. Then he finished me off with his 457mm guns. So that's the type of situations with St. Vincent where you're not just a battleship with 457mm guns. You have an ace up your sleeve with these torpedoes. You only get 2 of them, and the torpedo firing arcs are only like pretty much forward and slightly to your right, but not anywhere behind your ship. They're not torpedoes you fire when you're kiting. You can't. So they're really good. Your depth charge airstrikes have a range of 11 kilometers. You get 2 available flights, one aircraft in an attacking flight with 2 bombs and a payload. So you get 4 bombs basically if you drop them back to back. So helpful when you're having to deal with a submarine or you see him at range. So you can reach out and hit him, where some other battleships have like 6 kilometer depth charge airstrike. Most in the game have around 10, so having 11 here is nice on St. Vincent in my opinion. In terms of consumables, damage control party with our commander, we have built into, what is the skill called? I forget off the top of my head. Emergency Repair Expert, which increases the action time on our damage control party and our repair party. So instead of it being 15 seconds, we have 16.5 seconds, and we've taken a 1-point commander skill that reduces our cooldown time from 80 seconds to 77.6 seconds. So you're getting your DCPs off cooldown that much quickly. And if I take November Foxtrot, which reduces the preparation reload time by -5%, then we get our DCP back up in 73.7 seconds, which is really helpful. You're going to see the same story here with specialized repair teams, which massively heal your ship and bringing it back from death to life. HP per second without India Delta combat signals 1,588 with 1,905. This is definitely a ship you want to be running India Delta combat signals on. Our action time is 22 seconds. Otherwise, I think it's like around 20. Can't remember off the top of my head. Again, with that 1-point skill, our cooldown time is 77.6 seconds. Though November Foxtrot on, we have this back up in 73.7 seconds. So I do recommend running November Foxtrot with that St. Vincent. Engine boost, we've talked about it. We've talked about the ability to build it up 256 seconds, which I think is most ideal when you're talking about the second slot. Engine boost modification 1. Cooldown time, 120 seconds. Again, November Foxtrot brings that down to 114 seconds. So you get your engine boost back much more quickly. Your defensive AA fire consumable, you only get 3 of them. Continuous damage plus 50%, shell explosion plus 300. We can look at the AA defense real quick. 392, 1,470. We could bump that up a little bit with November Echoes at 7, 412, 1544. And then you do the math with the plus 50 and plus 300% here. Action time 40 seconds, cooldown time 80 seconds. Again, we can bring that cooldown time to 76 seconds. So this is a pretty valuable, I think, in my opinion, here on St. Vincent. Now, in terms of combat signals I run when I'm playing St. Vincent, it's a bit of a tricky one because I really like taking India X-Ray. So it means I have to give up something here because these, okay, what is mandatory, in my opinion, at least is these 4. If you want to be able to be more cheeky and get more speed because you have the engine boost on a battleship, it's rather unique. I like that. I've had situations where I want to get the RAM and take enemy ship with me. If he's running Hotel Yankee, I'm going to need a Hotel Yankee to polish him off. And then, yeah, then you would have that, right? So I've used all 8. Okay, cool. I can still select it and it'll show the 65%. So it's really a tough one. Which one you want to give up? Are you okay with only 64%? Do you really want the 65%? I want the 65%. So it's like, which one do you give up? And it might be something like between these two. If you wanting that additional cooldown time, which I think is great if you take this 1-point skill commander that I'm going to talk about, or 1-point skill. All right, let's go ahead and look at our Azurine commander being Nelson. Don't remember how I got this ship. I think I got it a unique way. It wasn't just from an Azure Lane event. I think I got it from a container, and I always forget how I got it. Or if it was I think it's a campaign. No, not campaign. Sorry, excuse me. I think it's in the collection where you can obtain Nelson. Screw it. You guys are gonna ask. Let me look real quick. Profile, collections. Oh gosh, they've changed how they look a little bit. It's not gonna be that. I think it's a British one. I think I'll recognize it when I see it. No, that's a Zuma. Oh no, that's just high school flick. Oh, that's the German destroyers, Royal Navy. Shouldn't it be this? No. Yeah, Azure Lane Collection. Nope, shoot, that's Azuma. Yeah, I probably just picked it up from a random container I got. I just really want to make sure I'm giving you guys accurate information. I forgot it was Azuma you get out of that collection. Yeah, it's not Dunkirk because you get Jack Dunkirk. Yeah. Okay, so that's how you get Nelson, is just from Azure Lane container, which there's going to be Azure Lane event happening maybe by the time this video goes up here in World of Warships. So if you really want to pick up Azure Lane commanders, you can do so there. There's no enhanced skills with Azure, at least that I'm aware of with the Azure Lane commanders. For me, it's just humorous to have Japanese girl yelling at me playing the game and talking nonstop. It's funnier compared to just having a standard commander, so it makes me laugh. With that being said, we have 18-point commander. I'm going to show you full 21-point build, and I'll show you some different options. But first off, let's just talk about a 10-point commander build. So there's two options you can go for your 1-point skill. It could be either Emergency Repair Specialist, or it could be Gunfeeder. Gunfeeder is going to reduce your shell switching time by negative 10.6 seconds. So 15.8 versus that 26.4 seconds. Sometimes I really want to have the Gunfeeder, but then there's other times I'm very appreciative that I have the Emergency Repair Specialist, just to have that negative 3% cooldown time on my damage control party and repair party consumable cooldown time. So honestly, it's going to be up to you, but I have elected to go for Emergency Repair Specialist, and I kind of talked a little bit about that, right, when we looked at consumables. So for the sake of the 21-point build, I'm building for, this is the 1-point skill I've taken. A 3-point commander, I'd say next, Grease the Gears, main battery traverse speed, plus 20%, really helpful to have here on St. Vincent. So definitely recommend you take this here. For a 6-point build, Adrenaline Rush, I think on the first impressions video we had, which I'll link both those videos at the end, I think we actually, our health pool is like 3,000 or 4,000 left, and we had like a 21.9 or 6-second reload time because we were getting max Adrenaline Rush, right? So to go from 26 seconds to 21, 22 seconds is really fun, in my opinion. Also means your torpedoes are reloading that much slightly faster, just in case you're in a dire situation and you need them. And then I'm going to say for a 10-point commander, go for Fire Prevention Expert. Fire Prevention Expert reduces your risk of catching fire by negative 10%. So that's one of the reasons why that builds in nicely with the damage control. System Modification 1 reduces your catching of fire negative 5%, so basically negative 20%. You want to think of that as a whole. And rather than having 4 fires on your ship, you only allow 3. Maximum number of fires -1. So if you're new, fire prevention, let me explain it to you. I didn't know about it when I first started playing the game. So without fire prevention, you would have 4 fires on your ship. 1 on the bow, 1 on the stern, and 2 on your superstructure. Fire prevention eliminates 2 fires on your superstructure, and you're only going to have 1 fire on your superstructure. Most people are targeting your superstructure, and you have a massive superstructure here with St. Vincent, and a lot of people are going to farm that. So to eliminate that risk of 2 fires and taking even more damage and overtaxing your specialized repair teams that much more, I really appreciate having fire prevention. And really at tier 10, with all the HE spam there is, you really need Fire Prevention Expert. So this is a must. After that, it's a toss-up when you look at a 14-point commander, whether you want Concealment Expert skill first or the Emergency Repair Expert. What I did was I went for the Concealment Expert. Now, without Emergency Repair Expert, this means you're only going to have 3 repair parties rather than 4. So my first impressions video you saw, I only had 3 repair parties, and we could have actually used a 4th one. We still lived at the end of the game, but we were extremely low in health, and that 4th one would have been really nice. So it's just really on your preference. I like the concealment. That's why I went for it as my 14-point commander, just because of that 12.8, and meaning I can go dark and reduce that chances of being targeted and fired more upon and dying. So that's why I went for 14 points. Up to you, but it brings your detectability range by air as well down to 9 kilometers. Now for 18-point commander, definitely Emergency Repair Expert. we talked about that damage control party and your repair party consumable action time plus 10%. So just being able to extend how long your DCP 16.5 seconds is going for, and then your repair party 22 seconds. So you're getting more use out of those two consumables, and you're getting a 4th specialized repair team rather than only having 3. So that's really, really nice to have on St. Vincent, in my opinion. Now, to even take more damage, if I want to get these games where I'm having 2 million, 3 million, 3.6 million potential damage, which I've had so far in St. Vincent, if you skipped to the end or to this part of the video, basics of survivability, it reduces the fire extinguishing time by -15%, flooding recovery time, -15%, and any modules incapacitated are going to be restoration time reduced by -15%. So you are one tough opponent to deal with between the specialized repair teams and helping the survivability, helping what tankiness you do have with St. Vincent, which isn't a whole lot. But with that specialized repair teams, you're coming back, hanging in the game for a lot longer than what you should be allowed to. Just because of that heal back potential. So this would be my 21-point commander build recommendation. Most battleships in the game have this build. Sometimes it can be a toss-up between the emergency repair specialist and gun feeder. I run more gun feeders on my tier 10 battleships than I do emergency repair specialist, but here I found use out of it, and I really wanted to have it to help maximize those specialized repair teams. 1,900 HP per second. Holy cow. So it could be between those two. Other option is, I did reference something about a brisk, where you could be going even faster. That could be rather fun to have, and then maybe you would be doing this, right? So you get the gun feeder and the emergency repair specialist and your brisk with your 12.8 kilometers. This could be something I see useful in competitive. If you're trying to get, let's say, clan battles, King of the Sea, something like that, where you're trying to get to those important positions early on, or you need to relocate across the map, I could see the value of having brisk in a competitive, even ranked sense. Where in randoms, I really see much more you're going to see this. So in a competitive sense, I can see the utilization of this 21-point build. This would probably be my competitive build. I would probably prefer on St. Vincent in that regard. Now, there's a fun thing we can reference here, and I did the math on it, and that's improved repair party readiness. It's a can-be activated skill, and it improves consumable efficiency each time your ship receives potential damage equal to 100% of your ship's base health pool. So our ship's base health pool is 79,400. And your repair party consumable cooldown time is -0.8%. So basically, the more potential damage you get, the faster your repair party comes off of cooldown time, right? So I had that game, I told you, 3.6 million potential damage. If I did the math right, if I'm doing this right, I'm going to do this again while I'm talking with you here in this video. 3.6 million times 0.08. Oops, that's not the right way to do that. Is it divided by? Oh no, how did I do that earlier? Crap, I figured it out early. Okay, anyhow, you have to take my word for it. Basically, we shaved off 27 seconds off of our specialized repair team. So, with that, 73.7 seconds minus 27 seconds, our repair party will be coming back at 46.7 seconds. Now that's a lot of potential damage, and it's likely you don't have a lot of health left, right? And do you even have any specialized repair teams left on your St. Vincent? It is a notable option. I had someone ask me about it, I think on Conqueror, so I thought I would mention it here. So I did do the math on it. I don't think it's that good overall. It's something to consider. But for randoms, I would say this. You can play this in clan battles competitive. You're probably looking at a build like this. And that's just in general what I would say is most valuable in running here on St. Vincent. Oh, someone also asked me about Furious, I believe. Improves your ship's characteristics for each active fire on board your ship. This is a bit of an anti-build skill where it means you don't want fire prevention and you want to increase the chances of fire on your ship because it reduces your main battery load time and increases the dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship by plus 5%. I don't really recommend this. If you're just trolling and you have enough Elite Commander XP or dubs that you just want to redistribute, test some things out, then yeah, you could try Furious out. But I think probably Conquer would maybe do a little bit better with this maybe than St. Vincent would, just off the top of my head. So I'm going to wrap that video up. I really do try to keep these videos at 30 minutes, but unfortunately we've gone over 35 minutes. So that being said, if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you're subscribed, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And I hope you appreciate the timestamps that I put in all these videos at the bottom so you can just skip around to your favorite parts. So until next time, take care.